Good evening, my name is Arlene Herson. The name of the show is Getting to Know You, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Tonight we're going to get to know a man who has starred on stage, screen, and television. Extremely talented, he's equally comfortable displaying his musical, comedy, and dramatic talents. Recognized by millions for his role as LeBeau on Hogan's Heroes, he portrayed a prisoner of war on the television screen. In real life, he was a prisoner of war, held in German concentration camps during the Holocaust. Tonight we'll find out how fame, fortune, and misfortune have affected him. He is Robert Clary, and let's get to know him. Welcome.
May I correct one thing?
Absolutely.
Okay, you say I portrayed a prisoner of war, which is correct in Stalag. Prisoner of war is a soldier. No, I was not a prisoner of war in concentration camp. I was an inmate. Somebody who was taken without being a soldier, sent to concentration camp because I was Jewish. I was lucky I escaped extermination camps. I could easily have been put to the gas chambers. It was nothing like prisoner of war in Stalags, and I just want to make the difference right away on the top of it.
It absolutely was different in many ways because one was real life and one
wasn't
real.
And even then, I mean, what I played on Hogan's Heroes was a prisoner of war in a Stalag. I mean, a soldier was arrested, was surrounded to the German army. What I went through the real life was completely different, and I was not a prisoner of war. I mean, maybe they call that the prisoner of war. I wouldn't put it in the same way.
Right. Okay. It was different, but yet it was
same
war,
element.
and you were a prisoner. But it's a whole different thing. Actually, it's something that happened to you more than 30 years ago, and for a long time you didn't talk about it. What made you now decide to share your experiences?
Well, first of all, we survivors of concentration camps. And it doesn't mean just Jews who were survivors of concentration camps, even non-Jews who were put into concentration camps when they came back. We didn't want to talk about it for the simple reason is we had a life to live. And if you keep on talking about what you went through, you don't live. If you keep on talking, like I spent 31 months in concentration camps, 4 different ones, and if I keep on talking about it, I'm not living. I mean, I just keep on reminding what painful experiences that I had. And that's most of us survivors did not do that. The exceptions, and they're marvelous guys, like Simon Wiesenthal or Elie Wiesel, who made their goal in life to let people not forget what happened. And they say, okay, we're gonna live from now on doing, remind the people in the world that 6 million Jews did die, millions of non-Jews did die in concentration camps, and we don't want people to forget. And that's what they did. But most of us did not. Most of us just either got married and went into a business and wanted to live a normal life.
Okay, well, what made you decide now to go public with your experiences?
The time is ripe, for me at least. Rise of anti-Semitism, seeing swastikas being painted on walls, synagogues being bombed, the Jews being the scapegoats all over again because the world is in bad situation. Realizing that there are people who call themselves revisionists who are writing books in magazines denying the Holocaust, and those books and magazines are available to history professors all through the world. And that's what some of the history professors are going to teach, that there was a hoax, that no 6 million Jews died. And all these things helped me to realize that as a survivor I have a duty. Like Simon Wiesenthal had for a long time, or Elie Wiesel. You have a duty. You owe it to the 6 million Jews who died. You owe it to your mother and father. While you are living, while you are able to talk, to go to high schools and junior highs and colleges, universities, and tell them the truth. Spill your gut. I saw one documentary that really put the icing on the cake for me. It was called Kitty, Return to Auschwitz. It was on PBS. And when she said, the reason I'm doing this documentary is because 20 or 30 years from now, most of us survivors will be dead, and anybody can say anything they want about it, denying it left and right. We won't be here to say, how dare they? That's really what put the icing on the cake for me. And I said to my wife, yes, I better stand up and be content. Right. She's absolutely right.
Right, absolutely. I'd like to go back before the Holocaust. You were one of 16 children.
Yeah, I'm the last of 16 children.
Yeah, the youngest of the...
Two separate parents. I mean, my father was married once. His first wife died giving birth to the last child. Then he married my mother, and she had 8 with her too, and I'm the last of the 16 children.
So he had 8 children in both marriages.
Yes,
well, what was it like being the youngest of 16
Well, you know, by the
children?
time I was born, I mean, some of my half-sisters and half-brother could have been my parents, easily. My father was 56 years old when I was born. I was I was cocooned. I was adored by everybody. I know what happened. My father was a religious Jew, and what he had with his first wife, he had very few sons. And you know, when you're a religious Jew, you want a lot of boys. And with my mother, he had two sons. One died. Also, the first one was a son. And in the middle of it, there was one son who died when he was 6 months old. And then he had one daughter after the other. And finally, in 1926, I am born a son, and he was absolutely thrilled. So I was really adored by everybody. Yeah. Top of it, I always sang and danced since I'm a little kid, since I realized. And that helped tremendously to be spoiled. Yeah. I had a marvelous childhood.
How did your father support 16 children? What did he do?
My father was a tailor. He made pants. It was once, I think, he ran a butcher shop in Poland, long time ago, selling tripes. That one of my half-brother was working in a butcher, and he was bringing back tripes, and my father was selling that. But as long as I knew him, he was making pants. And I was the best dressed kid in the neighborhood, because he used to make me at least 3 or 4 suits a year.
Extraordinary. Okay, and the singing and the dancing, you said you did that.
Always did.
When you were,
always did. I started when I was a little under 12 years old. I went to an amateur contest, and I did not win the first prize, but the people were so impressed by what I was doing. I was imitating French stars, French singing stars like Maurice Chevalier and a lot of others that people don't know in this country, like Miss Tinguette. And they were so impressed with that they hired me as a professional. They're singing in a radio show at that time, before World War II. The kids in Europe did not go to school on Thursdays and Sundays. And on Thursday, it was everything that was catered to them. The radio shows were catered to the kids, and that's what I was doing.
Yeah, okay. And then all of a sudden it changed. Not all
of a sudden,
but when you were 16. But we're going to take a break, because I want to be able to hear about the transition, what happened in your life after we come back.
Okay. Sure.
We're speaking with Robert Clary, and we'll be right back after these messages, so please stay right there. We're back with my very special guest, Robert Clary. Okay, you were sharing with us the experiences of being an adored child, being 12 years old, entertaining a very happy, big family.
Poor, very poor.
Poor.
But we did not know we were poor. I mean, we did really. So I lived in an apartment building in the most beautiful section of Paris. To the grace of a Jewish widow who built an apartment house there, 7-story high apartment house, for Jewish families with lots of children who could not afford to pay rent. And it was marvelous. We had social workers taking care of us when we came back from school from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. and teaching all about the Bible and telling us stories and seeing that we walked the straight and narrow and not become juvenile delinquents. And they were all pro-Zionist, all these young ladies in the early 20s, and they all went to Palestine in the late 30s. And they were remarkable. We remembered all of them with great fondness.
Yeah. What happened when you were 16 and it all changed?
Well, it wasn't gradually with that day. I mean, that day, when I was 16 and a half years old, I was arrested, but I've seen arrestations, I've seen roundups long before that. I mean, I have some sisters who lived in the same apartment building that I lived in the same house, who were not French citizens, because they came from Poland in 1923, who on July 16 were on the list to be arrested, and they were knocking on the door and asking for them to take 10 minutes and take your belongings and go. And they were just put into buses. And my turn with my parents came on September 23rd, 1942.
Okay, so you were aware of it before.
We were quite aware of arrestations. What we did not know, and nobody did know anything about it, is extermination camps and gas chambers. Nobody knew that.
Did you have any idea where your sisters were being taken to?
Well, we knew they were taken in a place, there's a camp outside of Paris called Drancy, a large transient camp. And from there some people stayed for a little while, some stayed for a longer time, and then they were deported. Where, we did not know. Because when I was on a train, on a cattle train, my mother asked me to write a letter to one of my brothers. And on the letter I wrote, I said, maybe we hope to join some of the sisters who were deported before us. In Metz is somewhere in France. It's a northeast part of Alsace-Lorraine. And that's where we thought we were going to go. We never thought we were going to go to Germany. We never thought, especially not thought, that the people were going to be exterminated.
What happened on that day when they came to your house?
It was very different. They arrested us in the evening. Usually when there were roundups, it was early in the morning before people went to work. And it was by quarters, like by arrondissement. And they would go and they would seal like they left, let's say, the 11th arrondissement, and then people knew a little bit in advance, and some will hide, some will go someplace else, but the ones who couldn't were arrested. Ours was different because they came at night and they arrested only this apartment house. And I figured that somebody must have gone to the police station and say, some of the Jews were arrested in this apartment house, but not everybody. Why don't you arrest them already? And that's what they did. And it took us like great surprise that night. They arrived around 10 p.m. and just arrested the whole apartment house, except for very few people. Older people who were very sick, could not be taken out of the bed. One of my sisters was hidden in a toilet. And she was not arrested this way. She was lucky that they did not open that toilet because they were opening all doors. The French policemen and the buses were downstairs. And after 10 minutes, we had to go in the buses and sent to a police station, spend overnight, and go to Drancy the next day. And then 2 days later, I was on the cattle train.
Did the family stay together?
The ones who were arrested that same day, yes. I had my mother and father, and I had a married sister with her husband and 2 young sons who lived in another section of Paris, but they were supposed to be arrested on July 16, and they knew that, so they went to our apartment thinking they're going to be safe, because they were not arresting French citizen Jews, you know. And they were arrested the same day. And I had an uncle who lived in an annex, a very close friend of my father's brother, younger brother, and he adored my father. And he went from the annex, he went downstairs to say goodbye to my father, and that's how he got arrested. His wife, who lived in the annex, was not arrested and survived.
Yeah.
And gradually, I mean, what they did with us when they arrested people, it was like anesthetize you. I mean, the screaming, the pushing, the yelling, you know, you were overwhelmed by it.
Where were you taken?
I was taken after traveling for 3 days and 2 nights. I was picked out before going to Auschwitz. They selected a few men to go to work. The people from 16 to like 45 or 40 were selected to go to work because they needed people to work in their factories. And then the train went to Auschwitz. I have a book that Serge Klarsfeld has put out. I don't know if you know who Serge Klarsfeld is. Serge Klarsfeld with his wife Beat are like Simon Wiesenthal. They are Nazi hunters. Serge Klarsfeld was born in France, lost his father in Auschwitz, and after the war, he got hold of the records, because everything was put in records. I mean, when you think of it, that Hitler wanted a 1,000-year Reich, very proud of what he was doing, and he put everything on record. The day you were arrested, where you were born, your first and last name, what date you were born, when you're going to be deported, it's all written there. And he got a hold of those records and made a book, and he gave me one. And everything is there. My name is there with a dot in the front of it. And once in a while you see a name with a dot in the front of it, which means that person came back. And it shows in my convoy there were 1,004 people in that train. We traveled for 3 days, and they selected 175 men to go to work. The train went to Auschwitz. Mengele selected 91 women and 40 men to go to work. The other 698 people went directly to the gas chambers that day.
Okay, I heard you came very close to going to a gas chamber initially.
Well, yes,
or maybe
because
not.
I did not look my age. I looked much younger than my age. I looked like 12 years old when I was 16. And now you're 12 years old, you're not supposed to live. You had to be put in the gas chambers. They did not, unless Mengele wanted you for an experiment. That's how you know, when you see Sophie's Choice, you get the impression that they were taking children and put them in a special camp. They did not do that. They took very few children for experiments. The others went directly to the shooting pits or the gas chambers. And I could have easily, because the one SS saw me sitting on the ground with 175 men, and he asked me to go back on the train because I looked too young. And because I was helping passing cans of water to the people who stand on the train, another SS man passed by, asked my age, somebody answered for me, I went down. And that's how I was saved.
Somebody answered you and said you were 16 because
there was an older man standing next to me doing the same thing I was doing, and he, how can I thank him? He's probably not alive, but he saved my life.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry to have to do what we have to do now, and that's take another break.
One has to live.
Right, okay. We're speaking with Robert Clary about his experiences, and we'll be right back after this message, so please stay right there. We're back with my guest, Robert Clary. Okay, your experiences were horrendous. Can you just share with us what a day was like in the concentration camp?
We'll get up very early in the morning after having maybe 4 to 4.5 hours sleep at night. That is if we were not on guard duty, because we had to be on guard duty to see that nobody escapes, and then we would do that at least 2 or 3 times a week. After sleeping very little, we would then wash our hands and faces, the one who wanted to do it, and drink that cup of black coffee, which they call coffee. It was really black water, ersatz coffee. Make our beds, like Marines. Really, the contrast was unbelievable. Everything. Well, otherwise, you come back at night and you'll see the barracks shambles. I mean, upside down because we didn't make our beds and clean the barracks so we had to do that, and then we had to stay on roll call for an hour to be counted before we leave for the camp, to the factory, and then walk to the factory in all kinds of weather, and then work for 12 hours at the factory. Then the same thing coming back, and then receive that. At the factory at noon, we would get a bowl of lukewarm water, which was soup with rutabaga put in it, sometimes a piece of potato. And at night, we'll get a piece of bread and margarine, and then go and sleep.
That was all?
Uh-huh. And to be able to survive, some people, I don't know how they did. I never did it, dealt in black market. Somehow I don't know how they kept the money or whatever, because we were inspected, before we arrived in a camp. I mean, upside down, and gold or anything was just taken away from us. But some of them, luckily, managed to hide some gold, and they would somehow get black market and get a piece of bread extra or whatever, piece of sausage. I never did that. My way of surviving is I entertained in a camp. I sang and danced for my inmates. And that, the chef at the kitchen always gave me a piece of bread extra or soup extra. And that enabled me to survive.
Yeah, it's wonderful that you were able to do that you were able to sing and dance.
It's part of my youth. It's part, when we young people, 14, 16, 17 years old, you don't know better. I mean, you want to survive, you're young, what did you lose in life? It's not like if you were married and you had children and you had a marvelous situation before the war and suddenly everything is cut out. We had nothing. I mean, yes, we lost our parents, but we did not know. For a long time, I did not know why my parents were sent to the gas chambers. I thought they were in a different camp like I was, and maybe they're going to work like I do and survive.
Did you have hope while you were there? Did you feel that you were going to be rescued someday?
In a different way. I never thought about that. I just lived day by day. And I must have been very optimistic. I never thought that. I always thought if the SS do not shoot me or hang me or torture me, if I don't get sick, then I will be able to survive somehow. I don't know if I'm going to get liberated one day, but somehow I will keep on living. And by entertaining also, my morale was very good, because while I was singing, I forgot where I was.
Yeah. How did you find out that you were liberated, that you were free?
Because we were liberated. That's how I found out.
Okay. But was there any special...
I was in Buchenwald. We had heard rumors. And Buchenwald was a tremendous camp. And in the big camp, there were mostly people who were political people and underground fighters and all people, they were not Jewish. And there was an underground in Buchenwald. Those people used to work in an arms factory, and they would smuggle arms. And they liberated the camp before the Third American Army arrived. So we always hear rumors. I mean, when the war was not doing well for the Germans in Africa, we heard that. But when it's like all rumors, it gets exaggerated, and you just take it with a grain of salt. Maybe, maybe not. The war's going to be finished in 6 months. The war's going to be finished in 6 years. We don't know. But in Buchenwald, I would say a few weeks before, we had heard that the Third American Army was very close by, and if we may have the luck to be liberated. But we also had rumors that they were supposed to liquidate the whole camp before they left.
Oh my goodness, well thank heavens that rumor wasn't true. Just before we take a break, how did you find out that your family members afterwards were in fact killed? How did you...
Well, we knew about the gas chambers, and we knew that they did not keep I knew they did not keep older people, women, small children. We knew what they were doing with them. So I knew the fate of my parents. I knew that they were sent to the extermination camps and to the gas chambers. And also when I came back, out of 13 immediate family, I'm the only one who came back. Yeah. Nobody else came back. I have some sisters who died from malnutrition, and some who were sent to the gas chambers.
Well, we're sure glad that you came back.
Thank you.
We have to take a break again. We're speaking with Robert Clary, and we'll be right back after these messages. Please stay right there. We're back with my very special guest, Robert Clary. All right, well, you did make it, and you did make it back to the United States eventually. Can you tell us what happened?
Not didn't make it back, because I've never was in the United States before that. I just want to clarify that. But I did make it to the United States.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, when you came home, what happened? How did you put your life together?
Well, the thrill of my life when I came home is to find some of my family was still living. I have some half-sisters and half-brother and sisters and brothers who were not sent to concentration camp, who joined the underground fighters, or were hidden by non-Jews and made it. were never sent to concentration camps. And that was the thrill of my life because I thought I would find absolutely nobody. And I just made a goal to make something out of my life. I just didn't want to rehash my past. I didn't want to feel sorry for myself, and I went right into show business.
How?
Well, I just took a little suitcase and I went to terrible joints in Pigalle in a nightclub. I said my audition. I had a few music and a few. I was tap dancing and doing blackface at that time, and that's the way I got work. And I just. The thing is in show business when you're young, if you think, you have to think that you're the best thing in the world, that nobody can do what you're doing. That's the only way you can do it. Otherwise, because it's such a cruel business, that if you don't think that way, if you don't think that you're the best, don't even go near it. Because it's just a harsh, cruel business. And that's what I did. I always thought I was the best. Nobody can tap dance like I do, and I was horrible.
Oh,
no, yes, I was.
weren't.
Please, I'm not a tap dancer, but that didn't matter. At that time, I didn't think I was horrible. And that's what put me over.
Yeah.
I was a band singer just before coming to the United States. I was singing with an orchestra. And I made some recordings in France in 1947. That was a big hit here in 1948. And the people who recorded me brought me from France in 49.
That's what brought you to the United States.
1949, with a contract. I was not like a lot of the survivors. They had to go to displaced person camps in Germany and wait for a visa, either to go to Palestine or the United States. I had a contract in 1949 to come here and make money.
Yeah, terrific. And,
Yes.
and entertain people.
Yes.
And while you were here, I understand that you met and married one of Eddie Cantor's daughters.
That's right. Just like this.
Just like, well, obviously didn't happen.
She was my best friend for 15 years before I married her.
Was Eddie Cantor involved in your career?
She heard my recording, and she wanted her father to bring me from France, but I was already signed with another company. But when I arrived here in 1950, I met Eddie Cantor. I met my wife through Merv Griffin to start with, because they were very close friends. And then right away, Natalie introduced me to Eddie Cantor, and he helped me tremendously. He put me on his Colgate Comedy Hour, and he changed me agents, and he was marvelous. And he was very responsible for my career to make a different way, to go to New York and be in New Faces of 1952, which was a great trampoline for my career.
We talked about that earlier, New Faces of 1952. You sang 2 songs in there that I'm in love with Miss Logan.
Yes, I'm in love with Miss Logan and Lucky Pierre, both
yeah.
written by Ronnie Graham, who's a marvelous composer and pianist and director and actor and everything. And it was a great trampoline for a lot of us who were New Faces, like Eartha Kitt and Paul Lynde and Alice Ghostley and Carol Lawrence and Ronnie Graham. And it helped our careers tremendously.
Just a few stars,
yes.
Right? And all. Okay, one of the things that you're most known for though now is Hogan's Heroes.
Isn't it amazing? You do a lot of things in your life, but you just hit one television that's a success, and it's true that it reached more people this way.
Yeah.
I've known all through the world with Hogan's Heroes. I went to Australia a few years ago, and you should have seen the reception I got there. It was fantastic. But we don't have the time to talk about it now.
Yeah, I wish we did, because we're really coming very close to the end. You made a film recently about survivors of
2 summers ago.
Holocaust.
I went in 1991. I went to the gathering of the world gathering of the Jewish survivors of the Holocaust in Jerusalem. And a year later, they made a movie of the week for NBC with Kirk Douglas about the same kind of thing. And I played myself because I went through it. And it was very interesting.
Do you think the Holocaust could happen again today?
Yes. And when people said to me, well, isn't it about time to forget about what happened? So I said to them, when you will remember, then I will stop to forget.
In the 30 seconds that we have left, can you tell us how the Holocaust has affected your life today?
I think it made me a better human being. I hope it did make me a better human being. Understanding life a little bit better. And I am in a crusade right now to teach young kids what happened in World War II. It's very important. I owe it to the 6 million Jews.
Yeah. Well, I thank you very much for being on my show and sharing with us your experiences. I hope that you have enjoyed getting to know Robert Clary. I know that I certainly have, and that you'll join us again next week. Meantime, good night. It's been a pleasure getting to know you.